Before dawn on a quiet Tuesday, Typhoon Kalmaegi slammed into the eastern Philippines, ripping roofs apart with winds of 150 kilometers per hour and driving walls of water over blacked-out towns. As the nation braced for its 20th brutal storm this year, over 150,000 residents raced to evacuation shelters in a desperate, coordinated push. But what did it take to keep disaster from becoming tragedy this time? And who was left in the storm's path? At exactly midnight, the Philippine Weather Bureau PAGASA clocked Typhoon Kalmaegi's landfall in Silago, southern Leyte. The first gusts battered the coastline with a roar, tearing through coconut groves and sending sheets of rain sideways across empty streets. Wind instruments registered sustained speeds of 150 kilometers per hour, with gusts punching even higher. Along the waterfront, storm surges climbed 2 to 3 meters above normal tide, swallowing sea walls and pushing salt water deep into inland barangays. Fishermen's boats, anchored and lashed the night before, snapped free and tumbled like toys. Within minutes, the power grid failed. Blackouts rippled across Samar and Leyte, plunging entire towns into darkness. Only the staccato flash of emergency radios and the faint glow of headlamps cut through the gloom. In the chaos, cell towers buckled and communication lines snapped, leaving families isolated as the storm's core pressed inland. Major highways vanished under water and debris. Ferry terminals, crowded with stranded travelers the previous evening, now stood empty and battered, with vessels grounded or swept up onto the shore. All transport, by land or sea, came to a halt. By dawn, the full force of Kalmaegi had carved a path of destruction across the region. Roofs were peeled away, trees uprooted, and floodwaters surged through homes and businesses. For those caught in the first hours, the storm's arrival was not just a test of endurance, but a race against a relentless, rising tide. Before the first light crept over the coast, the evacuation drive was already in full motion. In barangays flagged as high risk, sirens blared and public address systems echoed through narrow streets, urging families to gather at designated checkpoints. Over 150,000 residents, many still shaken from the September earthquake, filed out of their homes, clutching bags of clothes, food, and the few valuables they could carry. The National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, coordinating through a web of municipal command posts, pushed out real-time updates by radio and text messages, relaying instructions to barangay captains and local volunteers. In Hernani, eastern Samar, Captain Liza Mercado stood at the center of a crowded gym, her voice steady as she called names from a master list. Volunteers checked off arrivals, while social workers guided elderly evacuees to cots at the far end of the hall. Prepositioned food packs, bottled water, and medical kits lined the walls, each stack counted and logged hours before the storm's arrival. In Cebu, where tent cities from the earthquake still dotted schoolyards, evacuation center managers juggled double the usual capacity, shifting families from makeshift shelters into sturdier classrooms and auditoriums. The logistics chain stretched across provinces. Trucks loaded with rice and canned goods rolled out from regional warehouses, escorted by police and Red Cross teams. At the command center, NDRRMC officials monitored radio nets, tracking the movement of rescue boats and high-clearance vehicles dispatched to the most remote barangays. Each successful transfer was recorded, each bottleneck flagged for urgent action. Through this tightly woven network, barangay captains on the ground, center managers at the shelters, national agencies on the airwaves, the evacuation became not just a response, but a testament to a hard-earned culture of preparedness. In Barangay Anibong, Tacloban, floodwaters crept higher with every hour. The Alvarado family watched the street disappear below them and then climbed to their rooftop as water lapped at the windows. For 14 hours they waited. 6 people huddled on corrugated metal, filming short messages on a phone as the rain hammered down. One family member later recalled that they did not sleep because the water kept rising, and they filmed everything so others would understand what they went through. By mid-afternoon, a Coast Guard rescue boat finally reached their block, navigating tangled wires and drifting debris. The team's lead, Chief Petty Officer Rosales, described the scene as a maze of rooftops, each one crowded with families waving towels and calling for help. The Alvarados were among nearly 200,000 Filipinos directly affected by Kalmaegi's floods and power outages that week. Official reports listed one confirmed fatality as of the first day, while rescue logs recorded hundreds of calls for help from stranded homes. For many, survival meant clinging to hope and waiting for the sound of an engine in the flood's resilient silence. Floodwaters pressed deep into the heart of both city and countryside. In Metro Cebu, the Guadalupe and Mananga rivers spilled over their banks by midday, sending torrents through industrial zones and submerging entire neighborhoods. Official flood maps showed waters fanning out more than 2 kilometers from the main channels, leaving business districts and residential blocks under chest-deep water. In Leyte, Bay's croplands vanished beneath 1 meter of muddy runoff, with local agriculture officers estimating that up to 20% of the region's rice fields were underwater. The damage to standing crops meant not just immediate loss, but months of food insecurity for farming families. Ernesto Diaz, a smallholder farmer outside Ormoc, watched as the rain erased the boundaries of his land. "It's gone," he said, pointing to the submerged paddies. "All the seed, all the work, gone in a night." Across Negros Occidental, 15,000 hectares of farmland faced similar ruin as orographic rainfall forced water into low-lying villages. Meanwhile, rapid assessments flagged at least 20 major slope failures in upland Cebu and southern Leyte, where saturated hillsides gave way, sending mud and debris into already flooded barangays. Disaster officials issued urgent warnings for further landslides, knowing that with the soil still soaked, the threat was far from over. Disaster analysts point to a striking difference between Kalmaegi and the devastation of Haiyan in 2013 or Rai in 2021. Compliance with evacuation orders reached record highs in many provinces, with barangay officials reporting that nearly every household responded to warnings. Captain Liza Mercado in eastern Sama credits regular drills and a community memory still raw from past losses. Interviews with local spokespeople reveal a population that has learned to move quickly, board up homes, and stockpile essentials, habits shaped by hard experience. Resilience shows in the way neighborhoods organize, communicate, and protect one another before the worst arrives. Yet, beneath these improvements, a different toll has surfaced. After the September earthquake, and now the 20th cyclone this year, fatigue is everywhere. Evacuation center managers describe families who arrive with little left to carry, faces drawn from sleepless nights, and the stress of repeated displacement. A Tacloban resident waiting in a crowded gym sums it up. "We know what to do, but every time it gets harder." Analysts warn that while systems are stronger and compliance is up, the cycle of storms and evacuations is wearing down even the most resilient communities. For many, preparation is now routine, but the sense of exhaustion, physical and emotional, runs deep. Wind shear shaped the fate of Typhoon Kalmaegi long before it reached land. Instead of building into a catastrophic super typhoon, the storm's core was pulled apart by shifting upper-level winds, an invisible hand that kept maximum sustained winds in the range of 150 kilometers per hour. Meteorologist Matthew Capucci explained that these changes in wind speed and direction with altitude, known as shear, disrupted the storm's vertical structure and prevented the rapid intensification often seen in the region's deadliest cyclones. Kalmaegi's official classification hovered between Category 1 and a borderline Category 2 hurricane, according to both Pagasa and international agencies. But what the storm lacked in wind strength, it made up for in rainfall. Slow movement over the archipelago allowed rain bands to linger, with gauges in upland Cebu and central Leyte recording accumulations of 30 to 45 centimeters. Enough to overwhelm riverbanks and urban drainage in just a matter of hours. Kalmaegi's center cleared the western coast by Wednesday. Its circulation reformed over the South China Sea. Regional forecast centers tracked the storm's next path, westward toward Vietnam, where warnings went out for flash floods, landslides, and even tornadoes in provinces near Hanoi. Vietnamese disaster officials braced for renewed landfall, with hazard maps highlighting vulnerable lowlands and river valleys. Across the globe, meteorologists noted that Kalmaegi was only one among roughly 90 tropical cyclones that form each year, their tracks shifting heat from the equator toward the poles. As activity in the Western Pacific increases, other basins like the Atlantic often see fewer storms, a trade-off that shapes global weather. For every community in Kalmaegi's path, the storm's exit brought only a brief pause before the next system appears on the forecast charts. Typhoon Kalmaegi forced over 150,000 residents to evacuate and left nearly 200,000 people directly affected across the central Philippines. As the documentary showed, coordinated government action and high public compliance helped limit casualties to one confirmed fatality, a marked improvement compared to earlier disasters such as Typhoon Haiyan and Typhoon Rai. Still, families endured flooded homes, days without power, and lost livelihoods, while authorities continue to assess the full extent of infrastructure damage. Not every question has answers. For example, how quickly communities will recover and how ongoing storm fatigue will shape future response. With an average of 20 typhoons striking the Philippines each year, Kalmaegi's impact highlights both the nation's vulnerability and its increasing preparedness. Meteorological data confirm that storms like Kalmaegi are part of a global pattern that redistributes heat and reshapes lives. The evidence is clear. Resilience and adaptation are now essential for people living in the world's most storm-exposed regions.